In today's video, I'll be sharing with you how to create this space frame. This is a surface that is then subdivided into triangles, and then we develop this overall space frame. I'll be showing you two different options here at the end. So my goal here is to share with you more parametric design tips and tricks so you can make more progress and use this in your own designs. So with that being said, thank you very much for being here, and let's jump right into it. All right, so the first thing we need is to bring in a point. So we'll go here to construct point. And this way we can use this parametric point to start the whole script. So let's now go and create a point component. This is an empty point component, so we can always change the location. So we're using a parametric point, routing it through this one, and now we can get started with our script. So the first thing we'll do is move this point in the X direction. We'll bring in a slider to give it a particular spacing. Now this is going to vary depending on the size of the structure you want, but also if you're seeing things a bit different here than you have in your script, check out the display. I have draw icons, draw fancy wires, draw full names. So this way you can see all the icons and the inputs. So now that we move this over in the X direction, we want to create a midpoint. Now we can create a line segment and a midpoint, or I like to use the average component. This one lets you plug in a set of points and it will average in between, which is going to create the midpoint. Now we can take this and move it up in the Z direction. So we're basically creating an arch and it's going to be defined with 3 points. So we'll move this geometry up in the Z direction. And we'll create another slider here to move it up by whatever number you want to pick. So now here we have this point that moves up. So we can technically hide this average point because that's kind of old. And now we can create the arc using 3 points. So this arc is going to be using the first point, which is this one, point A. Then B is going to be the midpoint. And then the third one, C, is going to be the one that we moved all the way to the end. So as you can see, we can change all of these. We can change the height of the arc. And so now we're going to be creating another arc in the other direction. But the way that we'll be doing that is by, first let's hide these points. And now let's take this arc and divide it using divide curve. So we'll be using 10 points for now. We can always change that. But if we keep it simple here at the beginning, then we can add complexity a little bit later once we have the script already created. So with this, now we have 10 points here. Now we can move those points in the Y direction. So I use this guide here at the bottom left, so I know that I want to move it in the Y direction. So move the points in the Y direction, but I'll just copy this slider and move it in the Y direction. Now I want to do the same thing that I did here, which is create the midpoint between those points, but check this out. If I average them as they are organized here, which is a flattened list, you're going to see that it's going to average all of these points and all of these points and give you the midpoint. And that's not what we want. We want the midpoint of this grafted set. So if we go to graft, we'll get the midpoint between this one and this one, this one and this one, and that's what we want. So now that we have this, we can move this up in the Z direction once again, and we'll copy this over. So what I'm doing is I'm sliding it, tapping Alt, and now we can move this up in the Z direction. So this is going to be old now. And now we have the start point, the end point, and the midpoint. So we can now create an arc once again, or an arch, using the start point as A. So let's unplug these. Let's just create it again. Start point, end point, and midpoint. I just sometimes hate all these wires messing up my script, but that's okay. I want you to be able to see how things plug in here. Okay, so now that we have this, we have the ability to change the subdivisions, change the height, the length. So this is in the Y direction. This is in the height this way. And now what I want to do is create a surface between those. So let's go here to a loft component. And notice that it doesn't work because this is grafted, which means that this can't loft itself. This can't loft itself unless we flatten the input. Then it'll look at all of those as one list, and it will create the surface between all of those line segments. So let's hide all of this, hide all of this. And you know, sometimes this might be a useful set of curves. Like this can create like some beams or some support for a structure. But what we're doing today is a space frame, which means that technically we won't need this. This will also, like, let's go here to our divisions. This can also increase the quality of the arc, but we don't need too many line segments to create the surface that we see here. So technically we can just go to like 6, and that's enough to create that surface. So I'll hide this. And now with this, what is great about this design, in my opinion, is that we're going to have some bearing points. So this is where you can create a column. This is where you can create a column, but it creates this span both in the X and Y direction. So now that we have this, we can subdivide this in different ways, but the way that I like to do it for strength and just for the ability to create the space frame that is more structurally sensitive to what we're trying to do here. Let's go to Triangle Panels B. So this is going to be a plugin, which is Lunchbox. If you don't have that, you need to download it. This is very useful because it gives you presets on how to subdivide surfaces, and it's ready to go here. So we'll go to Loft, use the surface as the input. And now we're going to subdivide in the U and V. We can always change the number of subdivisions in whatever direction we want. So we'll go here to 8 and 10. I think that looks good. And now we can hide the loft here. So now what we need to do is to create the space frame. So the way that I like to do this is to take this and deconstruct the VREP. Why? Because we need to get all of these points. So each panel, so that we can do it just to one. This is one way that you can do it one at a time and then apply it to all of them. So let's say we want panel 10. Let's see if this is, let's do this panel. So by using list item, we can pick just one of the panels, and this is panel number 6. We can always go to another one, but I want to use a triangular panel. So let's go to panel 1. So this is 0, this is 1. Now we can hide this. We can actually do that to this one, to the faces of the deconstructed VREP. We'll flatten the input. And now we're using just this panel, because I want to show you that when you use deconstruct, you're basically creating the endpoints of each of those panels. So we are going to use those because those are going to connect to the center point. So now that we can do it to one, actually, let's do it this way. So notice that we have the faces, edges, and vertices. We're going to be using the vertices and the face because we're going to offset the surface. I'm going to give it a value. So it will offset perpendicular to its normal, which is basically offsetting using the plane that it has here. So let's go here to a slider that has 2 decimal points so we can be a little bit more precise. And it's offsetting in the opposite direction. Now, that is possible too to create a space frame this way, but let's go to a negative direction. Kind of lower this, maybe we'll go to 8. So now that we have this surface here, let's create the midpoint of that surface. So we'll go to an area component. And so we have the midpoint. And if we can do it to this panel, we can do it to all the panels at once. So now I'm hiding that because I want to connect the vertices, which are the points. We have 3 points and we're going to connect it to 1 point. So let's go to align segment, starting here and ending here. Then we won't need the surface. We'll use the edges of this. Now we can hide this. And we can also hide this one. So notice that this is going to be the geometry for the space frame. And now we can go here to, instead of flatten, we'll go to graft. And notice that it does that to all of them. And what's cool is that we can hide this first. We can change all of these subdivisions if we want it to be a little bit more dense or not. We can also do something similar to other triangulated panels. So it's not just for this type of design. It can be done with many different designs. Now, the only issue that I see here is this. When we have these line segments and we bake them, I want to show you the issue. We have 2 line segments here. And the reason why is because this panel has 1 edge, this panel has 1 edge, and therefore they will overlap. The way to fix this is to join all of the faces together. We'll flatten the input so it joins them all rather than just doing one individually. It should say 1 close or open brep because it's open. Now we can do brep edges. And we can extract the outside and inside line segments using the naked and interior curves. So let's go here to curve. For the outside, this one for the inside, and then we have the connections here. So now let's hide all of this. And now we have, when we go here to bake these, you'll see that I'll move these over to the side just to show you. these are individual line segments because when you join it all together, these are just creases in the overall surface. They're not individual panels. So that's a way to fix that issue. Now that we have this, we can create the space frame in two different ways. We can create pipes or sub-D multi-pipes. So let's take the first step and go to this one. Is a little bit more control because you can pick a different diameter for the outside. So this one will do, let's change the size of this. Let's increase it. So let's say 1.5 for this one, then copy the pipe. We'll just do 1 for this one. And then we can do this one, 0.5. So this gives you control in terms of, let's go here to round. So the edges or the connections look good. This gives you control in terms of being able to pick the outside edge as a specific radius, the inside one as a specific radius, and be able to control them individually if you want to. We can also plug all of these into one set of pipes, and it can create all of them the same size. Now the other option is to take all of these. So I'll have this available so you can see the two different options. Let's go to multi-pipe and plug in both basically all of these in at once. Holding down Shift, I'll add more inputs and I'll flatten the input here so you can see that they are all being looked at as one long list. And now we can hide this because this is a different iteration. And you can see that the connections are perfect here. So this is better in terms of visually, the connections are just look a little bit more continuous. The other one, it's not as continuous. And this one, you can change the size by going to the strut size. I'll create one for the size of points or node size. And then I think it's end offset. Yeah. So with this one, we can change the size using this one, these various sliders. This is going to be more for the connection. Like this one would be good if you're 3D printing because it will create a continuous solid that you can 3D print. But the other one, when you're using pipes, if you're trying to put it together, let's say for 3D printing, it's going to be very difficult because trying to join and Boolean union a bunch of different pipes gives you a lot of issues. This one also creates more of like a rounded edge. So it can create some other patterns that you can't really see with the other design. So these are two different options that I think are pretty interesting if you ask me. We can also offset this a little bit more. So this creates more of an ability to route, things through like mechanical equipment or even lighting. It creates the strength of the design as well. And we can change all of the options here. So let's go back and change the height. And to see it a little bit better, let's do this. Let's go to a custom preview. Use a color swatch. I like to use grayscale to start, then change it. Let's go to 25 here. This could also be used for a skin, for a facade. So not necessarily only for a space frame like this. And now let's hide this. Copy it over, and then let's do that same thing to this one. So I'll hide this as well. And then we also have the ability to have different colors for each. Let's go here too. A little bit much there. 3, then 2, and then 1. By changing the colors, we can see, let's say, maybe the outside one is a little bit darker. And then these could be a little bit lighter. So I'll have this available on my website. I want to be able to share this with you guys that are here from the beginning. And you can see that in the link below. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. What I'll do now is kind of clean up this script, label it, and like I said, hopefully you learned a few more tricks. This one is useful because it can be applied to not just a roof structure, like I said, to many other different applications. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.